Welcome to my channel. My name is Mark Neese. I'm a psychotherapist who loves hiking, backpacking, cycling, climbing. This channel is dedicated to the body-mind connection. And today I want to share a little bit of an interview that I did a couple weeks ago with a guy that I've been working with for a number of years. And he absolutely fits the definition of a public servant. He's a wonderful man who helped ensure that the prisons in this state were safe for the prisoners. He took care of the prisoners and he went around and inspected prisons. A wonderful man, but because of all that exposure to, I guess maybe you could say, the darker side of life, developed into a cynic. And he's going to share a little bit about that journey on how he recovered from being a cynic and why he recovered from being a cynic. This is a little bit of a continuation of one of the earlier episodes I did on Never Give In to Cynicism. So Chuck is going to share a little bit about his life. He's experiencing some very serious health issues. And despite all that, has recovered from cynicism. So I want to share his life with you, and then at the end I'll wrap up things. So here we go. Okay, Chuck, we're going to talk a little bit about cynicism, but before we do that, there's going to be like 4 little segments here, but the first segment is going to be on your health conditions and how that's affected you.
My outlook. Well, I have a condition called inclusion body myositis. That's a distant cousin to ALS. And to make a long story short, I have a condition that I was born with, or has to do with proteins in the blood. Anyway, it attacks the large motor muscles in my body, the legs and arms.
Okay.
And I've had other health conditions too, a heart attack that had a 4 bypass and a mild cancer diagnosis at one point. But that's sort of why I'm not able to be as active as what I've been.
And so, we talk about, I've talked with you about the marginal decade. I've mentioned things like you got to prepare for the last 10 years of your life. And part of that is physical, but part of it's also mental.
It's introspection.
Yeah. And but let's stay fixed a little bit on the physical part. There's some, I had a friend describe life as walking through a minefield. And, you never know what kind of mine you're going to step on. It could be a little one, could be a big one. You've stepped on some pretty big mines.
Stepped on some pretty big mines.
And so we're going to look at, I want people to hear that you've got some pretty serious physical issues. You've had to be helped into your chair. You've got a healthcare aide that comes to your house. You're not able to walk really much of it at all. And yet I'm going to ask you a question, and then we're going to build on that. But are you a cynic?
I've been a cynic for as long as I can remember.
But are you a cynic now?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, that's, I think, what people need to get from this. And so let's stop, and I want to ask you a couple questions about cynicism. So. Okay, so I want to work from 3 different perspectives. This next segment is on, I'm borrowing from Alcoholics Anonymous. What your life was like before, what happened, and what your life is like now. And they don't have to be real lengthy responses, but what was your life like as a cynic, and how did it affect you and affect people around you? So talk a little bit about your cynicism.
Well, I turned out to be, earlier on, I was a skeptic. I was one of these people, always skeptical of everything. And a good skepticism is not necessarily bad, but that kind of morphs into more and more, I think I'm right about everything, and my opinion matters to everybody. And you get to that point, and then you start getting a dark brooding thing of cynicism. I kind of like to think of it as sort of like an addiction that comes on, and you get so that you live in it. It's like a big heavy coat that you wear that you don't want to take off, and you gotta hit the bottom before you could be introspective enough to finally have to look at yourself in the mirror.
How did it affect people around you?
It drove away a lot of friends. It drove away a lot of happiness that I could have had.
So was it? I don't mean to say was it. Did you waste years? But
Yes.
it seems like when you're living in that kind of mindset,
Yeah.
you don't see the good things.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the bad things. One of the earmarks of cynicism is lack of hope, hopelessness. Was that where you were at?
Yeah. If it wasn't for a wonderful wife and wonderful family that she had, that she was raised in a very optimistic home. And it was like, to me, to walk, when I first went there, it's like, wow, it's like Dorothy coming out out of the house and seeing, whatever it was, Oz. And I got away from the gray, miserable unhappiness till I see a way to get out of that unhappiness.
Well, let's talk about you were talking earlier about this heart-to-heart talk that you had with your son. What was that about?
Both of my children had talked to me for years about, oh, Dad, I don't want to hear that. And Dad, you can't say anything good about anybody or anything. What's the matter with you? Why are you like
kind of a curmudgeon?
Curmudgeon, yeah. And it's, I don't want to hear it, Dad, and I don't even want to be around you at times, that kind of stuff. And we had a sort of a family emergency. There was a medical emergency that happened at the time. And David stepped up to be sort of the hero of that situation, where he kind of took me by the arm and said, "Sit down, Dad. And he's always been my little boy."
Right.
And here he was, a very wise man, sitting me down and telling me. I said, "Well, David said, I don't know about therapy or anything like that. You wouldn't do something like that." He said, "Dad, I've been in therapy a bunch." So...
Therapy doesn't hurt anybody, does it?
And I think it's been that I've rained on their worlds as they were growing up so much. I've rained on friends, family, loved ones.
Let me say this, and sort of in fairness to you as well, Chuck. You worked in the prison system. You didn't, and part of that time was actually being in the prisons. But I know that has got to wear on people. It sort of jades you to people. I also wanted to, as we talked very early about your physical health, did that contribute to some of that sense of negativity and hopelessness?
Yeah. I realized that there was no way out of where I was.
Okay.
And that I'd kind of come to the dead end of my fooling myself or thinking, I can get through the world without really understanding and looking inside and liking what I see and keeping that, and disliking what I see and getting rid of that. And I understood at that time that I was not who I really wanted to be.
Where were you headed? We're going to ask this question, and we're going to go to the next segment. But where do you think you were headed in your life with all that cynicism and negativity and that darkness? Where were you headed, you think?
Well, I was headed for complete isolation. I don't know. I don't know how my loved ones stayed with me as long as they did. I don't know why I didn't recognize years and years the before how happy I could have had. The the little things, the life that I could have had.
Right.
And I didn't realize it until I had to.
Well, let's stop, and then I want to go to the next question. So just give a second here. We'll
All
get
right.
into our next segment.
All right.
So what happened? What changed? What was it? A sudden thing? Was it something that sort of crept up on you, saying, "I'm not going to be able to live a life like this much longer. I'm not going to make it with all this negativity and pessimism"? What happened, Chuck?
I think it happened over a span of probably a year, 2 years, where I had to slowly climb out of the hole that I dug for myself. And therapy was the huge part of it.
Okay.
And the other part of it was I realized that I'm surrounded by people that loved me and looked up to me, had a whole lot higher opinion of me than I had of myself. And when I looked around and turned on the lights of life and saw what was good around me and what a wonderful, marvelous life I really had, and then once I reached that point, it was just like they turned on the switch.
Well, I think, okay, and I hear you say that, and it's wonderful. But how does that? Because I think a lot of people are afraid to get older because of the physical health issues that everybody's gonna face.
Sure.
And you came out of your cynicism in spite of these health problems that you were having, and I think I don't know if this is your word or not, but this is not, your health problems are not going to go to a great place eventually.
Right.
And so I think what I would say is that you came through that in spite of the fact that you've got this huge cloud of this cousin to ALS hanging over your head. And well, let's stop, and then we'll get to the last section here on what's life like now.
All right.
All right, so what's life like for you now, Chuck? I mean, I think you can't get around very well. I mean, I fast forward my life, and I'm, you know me, I'm a big hiker and backpacker and outdoorsy person, and the thought of not being able to do that would be depressing for me. But I see you, and it's encouraging to know that your life still goes on despite some of these physical problems and health issues. So what's life like for you now?
Well, I feel like, to use a metaphor here, Mark, I feel like I'm somebody that's gotten out of jail or gotten out of a concentration camp. Why shouldn't I be happy? I'm having a ball. I'm lucky enough that I've got my wife, and I'm lucky enough that I have my family, and I've managed to get health care. I've managed to get everything taken care of in my life, pretty much. And I know I'm somewhat of a burden because of my health thing, but that's okay, because I know they love me.
Well, you've reached out and made some good decisions for yourself too, so don't cut yourself short there. Sell yourself short, because I've been with you through some of this process. You're in the home and community-based waiver and all those decisions to help you get into that, and the process of doing that was not an easy process.
Oh, Lord.
But nevertheless, you got a wonderful home, wonderful wife and children. Your children are still involved very much in your life.
Yeah.
You go. I know that you said you're participating in a church, but that's more just through Zoom and that kind of a thing, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Zoom necessarily, but it's more
Weekly Zoom Bible study, they call it.
Right. And
There's no
I think
such thing as Sunday school anymore. It's Bible.
well, thank goodness
Yeah.
that you can make connections even though you can't get out of the house. And that's really, and I think what I see happening with people that are cynics is what you described earlier, is that isolation. and you are you've got a worker that comes in to work with you. You've got a great relationship and rapport with them, your family, your wife. Even though some of your friends, I think, are somewhat get on your nerves with some of their maybe political views and those kind of things, still you're not an isolated person. It doesn't seem like. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement because I've got 100 some odd television stations. I've got the internet. I've got, my phone if I need to talk to anybody. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Legs are great, and I'd love to be able to be out and do more active things. But, I talk about people having hobbies, odd hobbies. My hobby's always been movies. I watch movies, I know old movies, new movies. And I just like, my wife calls me the groundhog or the mole, I think. I'm in my little den, my little dark cave here, But that's okay.
Well, I appreciate the time that you've given me today, and this will probably be posted as a separate episode. But I want somewhere down the road for us to do this again because I think it's going to be helpful. And I think people need to know that getting older isn't prison.
No.
And it can be a very wonderful experience that isn't full of cynicism, but full of hopefulness. And I think that's what you're communicating.
One of the first things that we talked about when I first met you, when I first came to you, you said, well, what do you really want out of your life for the rest of your life? I said, what I want the rest of my life is my family to remember me and look up to me and think, man, my dad, my husband was a pretty good man, pretty good person. That's good enough for me.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
And I'm slowly getting there. They're tolerating me all right.
All right. Well, we'll close this out, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll have a few more times that we can share with you.
Yeah,
so
come on in, knock on the door anytime.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. I've got more from Chuck I want to share. We talked a little bit about sort of the predicament that our country's gotten into and how he's coping with it, and maybe can provide some thoughts and suggestions for you in coping with it as well. So thank you for being a part of this. I hope you had enjoyed it, and I'll see you out on the trail.